Hello, dear students. Today I am going to explain the chapter The Fundamental Unit of Life from class 9 CBSE. What I attempted is that I tried to represent the whole chapter, The Fundamental Unit of Life, line by line in the form of short questions and answers. Apparently, this chapter appears to be very uninteresting, but I assure you this is a quite interesting chapter. You can see the structure of a cell where you can see many organelles are present. So if you think cell to be the head of the family, then cell has a very big family. And the members, oh my god, they're amazing members. Their nucleus is there, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, and so many. And each and every member, they have their own duties assigned. They perform their different functions. They have their responsibilities and help the cell to perform better. The first question is, who discovered cell? We all know who discovered it because we can't forget this famous scientist Robert Hooke in 1665. From a piece of cork, he discovered these cells which resemble the structure of honeycomb that were made up of many compartments. We know that if you see the structure of a cork, do you know what is cork? Then you can see in question number 3, it's written cork is a substance which comes from the bark of a tree. So he discovered this cork. That was, an amazing discovery. And if we come to the meaning of the cell, it's a Latin word, origin is Latin, and it means a little room. Who first discovered living cells? See, we have seen in the previous question who first discovered cell. That was not living one. Now we are telling who first discovered living cells. Again, Leeuwenhoek in 1674, he first discovered these free living cells in pond water. Then the discoverer of the nucleus, Robert Brown, in 1831. Then the term coining of the term protoplasm was done by Purkinje. The scientists who presented the cell theory, that is Schleiden and Swan. What is cell theory? It states that all plants and animals are composed of cells, which is the basic unit of life. Now, the most important definition of cell is the structural and functional unit of life. I repeat, cell is the structural and functional unit of life. We all know the invention of which lens led to the discovery of microscope, magnifying lens. The examples of unicellular organisms, amoeba, paramecium, chlamydomonas, bacteria, etc. Who expanded the cell theory? Virchow in 1855. He stated that all cells arise from pre-existing cells. If it is asked, state two functions of a cell, then first one, as you can see, that cell has a definite structure for which different organelles can function in their own specific ways. Second function, it's very important function for the cell, that it carries out some important physiological processes like respiration, nutrition, excretion, etc. Next is that who discovered Golgi apparatus. Camillo Golgi, who was a doctor, you can see, and he worked mainly with nervous system. He is a Nobel Prize winner in 1906. Then the characteristics of Golgi apparatus we have come down, where you can see in the diagram about the cisternae that has been mentioned. These are flattened sacs arranged in stacks. You can see the cisternae, flattened sacs arranged in stacks. They have direct connection with endoplasmic reticulum, because Golgi apparatus, within Golgi apparatus, actually this endoplasmic reticulum is packaged and dispatched to various targets in and out of the cell. Apart from these, this apparatus has storage, modification, all these functions that are being carried out by these vesicles. Golgi apparatus converts complex sugars into simple sugars. And lastly, that is mentioned, it helps in the formation of lysosomes. Now, the next question is why Golgi apparatus forms a complex cellular membrane system. Complex cellular membrane system. Because it has connection with the membranes of endoplasmic reticulum, so it forms a complex cellular membrane system. Totally, you will be able to understand when you go through this endoplasmic reticulum too, then you will be able to understand that what connection Golgi apparatus and endoplasmic reticulum they have. What is cell division? The process by which new cells are formed to grow, to replace old, dead and injured cells, and most importantly to form gametes for reproduction. So how many types of cell divisions are there? There are others too, but here mitosis and meiosis have been highlighted, where you can find that cells divide for growth, that is called mitosis, where mother cell divides to form two identical daughter cells. Daughter cells have the same number of chromosomes as mother cell, and it helps in growth and repair of tissues in organisms. Example, you see the growing hair, then the growth of nails. And if we come to meiosis, where two consecutive divisions are involved, and when meiosis occurs, four new cells are formed. Where in case of mitosis, you see two identical daughter cells are formed, but in case of meiosis, four new cells are formed, and these new cells have the half number of chromosomes compared to the mother cell. Whereas in case of mitosis, we have found same number of chromosomes. The daughter cells have same number of chromosomes as mother cell. Now, the details about plasma membrane. Let us know what is this membrane. Now, you can find the outermost covering of the cell, that is plasma membrane. You can see the diagram of the plasma membrane, where we can see that it is made up of protein, you can see the different proteins that are present in plasma membrane, and also lipids. See about glycolipid. So it's a structure made up of protein and lipids. Plasma membrane is called a selectively permeable membrane because it allows only some materials to enter into the cell or some materials to come out of the cell, not all. Hence, it is called a selectively permeable membrane. Now, we have already told that plasma membrane is a selectively permeable membrane. So, different processes that go on within this plasma membrane. What are these processes? Diffusion, osmosis are the different processes that go on. And from a very lower class, you are acquainted with these terms, but there should be no confusion regarding the definition or regarding the process of diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is a spontaneous movement of a substance from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now, this substance includes both solutes and solvents. Example has been cited here. You can see that CO2 is a cellular waste. What is CO2? That's carbon dioxide gas is a cellular waste to animals. Now what happens? The concentration of carbon dioxide is higher within the cells compared to the outside of the cell. So what happens? Carbon dioxide gas spontaneously moves from the cell to outside. That means from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. This is diffusion. Next question is state the functions of diffusion, where we can see that diffusion plays an important role in the gaseous exchange between the cells and between the cells and its external environment. And second one is cells also obtain nutrition from the environment. So diffusion plays very important role in gaseous exchange, as it experts in gaseous exchange. From biological point of view, this is very important role played by diffusion. Next question, we are coming to what is osmosis. Now in diffusion, solvent and solutes both are involved, but in case of osmosis only solvent is involved. See, the process of flow of solvent from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration through a selectively permeable membrane till equilibrium is reached is called osmosis. So example is absorption of water by plant roots. We all know that in the soil water concentration is more than the roots of a plant. So water will have a general tendency to flow from soil to the roots. Now in the diagram it has been shown that there is a selectively permeable membrane in between a sugar solution. Okay, so the one side of the selectively permeable membrane there is a concentrated sugar solution, and another side there is a dilute sugar solution. So in case of dilute sugar solution, you can see the red dots which are designated as sugar molecules are less in the dilute sugar solution, whereas in case of concentrated sugar solution the red dots are more, and in between these two solutions there is a semi-permeable membrane. Now in the next diagram you see osmosis has occurred, and then what will happen? More water is drawn into the concentrated sugar solution. You can see the right side the level has gone down where it was a dilute sugar solution, where there were more blue dots. In the blue dots, that water has passed into the concentrated sugar solution. You can see from the diagram that water has flown from the region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. That means to the concentrated sugar solution where water molecules were less, but from dilute sugar solution to the saturated sugar solution or rather concentrated sugar solution, you can see water has flown from the high concentration region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now the similarities and differences between diffusion and osmosis. You can see the two circles have been made and there is a common point where it is written equalizes the concentration of two solutions, and in case of diffusion it is written solvent and solute particles move to equalize concentration. There is no need of semi-permeable membrane, but as in case of osmosis only solvent particles are involved and a semi-permeable membrane is a must. What is a hypotonic solution? A hypotonic solution has a lower concentration of solutes than another solution. From the perspective of biology, a solution outside of a cell is called hypotonic if it has a lower concentration of solutes relative to the cytosol or cytoplasm of the cell. Due to osmotic pressure, water diffuses into the cell and cell often appears turgid or bloated. Now, what is an isotonic solution? An isotonic solution refers to two solutions having the same osmotic pressure across a semi-permeable membrane. This state allows for the free movement of water across the membrane without changing the concentration of solutes on either side. Lastly, what is a hypertonic solution? A hypertonic solution is a particular type of solution that has a greater concentration of solutes on the outside of a cell when compared with the inside of a cell. Now we are coming to what are the characteristics of plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is flexible. It's made up of lipids and proteins. Structure of plasma membrane is microscopic. It is selectively permeable. These 4 points are very important in case of the if it is asked what are the characteristics of plasma membrane. It is flexible, made up of lipids and proteins, as you can see from the diagram even. This it's microscopic in structure and it is selectively permeable. Now, next question, what is endocytosis? The flexibility of the plasma membrane helps the cell to engulf food material from the external environment by a process called endocytosis. We all know amoeba acquires its food by this process of endocytosis. It acquires food, it engulfs food from the external environment due to the flexible nature of the plasma membrane. Now we are coming to cell wall. What are the characteristics of cell wall? It is present only in plant cells. Remember this point, cell wall is present only in plant cells. It's a rigid outer covering that lies outside the plasma membrane. It is composed of cellulose and it has a complex structure. It provides actually the structural strength or mechanical strength to the plant cells. Cell walls help fungi and bacteria to withstand pressure so that cells can endure greater changes in the surrounding medium than animal cells. So cell walls are very important to the plants because it has cellulose, and cellulose is absent in animal cells. So it provides mechanical strength to the cell. It's a rigid outer covering, and it helps fungi and bacteria to withstand more pressure, so that the plants can withstand great variable changes in the surrounding medium than animal cells. Then we are coming to plasmolysis. When a living cell loses water through osmosis, there is shrinkage of contents of the cell away from the cell wall. This process is called plasmolysis, as we have already learned from hypertonic solution. When the water concentration inside the cell is more than the water concentration outside the cell, then cell has a tendency to lose water and it shrinks, and the same process is called plasmolysis. Now we are going to study about nucleus, the most important member of the cell as we think, because nucleus has chromatin, and chromatin, it's a tangled thread like structures present within the nucleus. and it has the DNA, the genetic material, which carries the genetic information from one generation to another. Says what are the characteristics of nucleus? Nucleus has a double layered covering, as from the diagram you can see it's a double layered covering called nuclear membrane, which have pores. You see in between the nuclear membrane there are certain pores, thus allows the transfer of material in and out of the nucleus. It contains chromosomes which carry information of inheritance of characters from one generation to the next in form of DNA. It plays an important role in cellular reproduction and can direct the chemical activities of the cell. So nuclear pore is there, nucleolus is there, nuclear membrane is there, nucleoplasm is there, and chromatin is there where the chromosomes are present containing DNA. So this is the structure of a nucleus, the most important member of the cell, rather in the family of to what are chromosomes. The chromosomes are rod-shaped structure when the cell is about to divide. You can see the tetrad structure where the chromosomes are attached with each other with centromere at the middle. There is a red dot at the middle. It's a tetrad structure. So it's made up of DNA and protein. The full form of DNA we all know, deoxyribonucleic acid. It contains the information of inheritance of characters from parent to the next generation. So DNA is the most important genetic material which remains within these chromosomes. And if we come to a very basic question, what are genes, then we will come that functional segments of DNA are called genes. Functional segments of DNA are called genes. And rather, if we say in other words, what is DNA? DNA is the structural and functional unit of gene. In what way the question is asked? Almost the same, but you can see what are genes, functional segments of DNA. And if I say what is, now we are coming to what is chromatin. When the cell is not dividing, the DNA is present in the form of an entangled mass of thread-like structure, which is called chromatin. As you have seen in the diagram of nucleus, there is an entangled mass of thread-like structure. In that is called chromatin. And when chromatin transforms into chromosomes, when a cell is ready to divide, that means chromatin you are telling when the cell is not dividing, and when it gets transformed to chromosomes, when its cell is ready to divide, then this chromatin material gets organized into chromosomes. Now, why the nuclear region in bacteria is poorly developed? The nuclear region of a bacteria is poorly developed due to the absence of a nuclear membrane. You see, in bacteria, it's a prokaryotic type of cell. We will come across about these prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So it's a primitive type of cell where nuclear membrane is absent. In that case, it's very poorly developed. The nuclear region of bacteria is very poorly developed. Now, what is nucleoid? When the nuclear region of a cell is poorly developed due to absence of nuclear membrane, the undefined nuclear region, which has only nucleic acid, that is called nucleoid. That means there is no nuclear membrane, nothing nucleus. Everything means most of the organelles of nucleus, they are absent when in well organized cell structure, as we can see in prokaryotic cell structure. In that case, in that unorganized or undefined nuclear region, which has only nucleic acid where the DNA is present, that is called. Now we are coming between differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Pro means primitive and eu means new, karyon means nucleus in both the cases. Now in case of prokaryotes, you can see cells, they lack nuclear membrane. Nuclear region is not well defined, but cells have a nuclear membrane and nuclear region is very much defined. In case of prokaryotes, cells lack most of the cytoplasmic organelles. Cytoplasmic organelles are distinctly present in case of eukaryotes. Then in case of prokaryotes, functions of the cells are carried out by poorly organized parts of cytoplasm. Still the functions are carried out, that they are not at all well organized. But in case of eukaryotes, functions of the cells are carried out by different cytoplasmic organelles and they are well organized, of course. Then the chlorophyll in photosynthetic bacteria has membranous vesicles, but when membranous vesicles are absent in plastids in case of eukaryotes. Circular double-stranded DNA is present in case of prokaryotes, but here linear double-stranded DNA is present in case of eukaryotes. The examples are archaea and bacteria in case of prokaryotes. Examples are plants and animal cells in case of prokaryotes. Now you can see the diagram that will depict or that will help you more to realize what are the main differences between these prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Obviously, this diagram may be also a point of difference between these two types of cells. You can see in the prokaryotic cell where there are ribosomes, nucleoid, flagellum, cell wall, cell membrane. But in case of eukaryotes, you can see a number of cells organelles present like cytoplasmic membrane, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, nucleus, nucleolus, nuclear membrane, Golgi apparatus, cytoplasm, mitochondria, chloroplast, everything is it's a well organized cell structure. Whereas in case of prokaryotes, we cannot find all these cytoplasmic cell organelles. Now, what are the characteristics of cytoplasm? This region is lightly stained, as you can see in the diagram. The lightly stained portion is called cytoplasm. It's a fluid contained inside the plasma membrane or cell membrane. It contains many specialized cell organelles, with each organelle having specified functions to carry out. Cell organelles are enclosed by distinctive membranes, and cytoplasm gives a definite shape to the cell, and cytoplasm most importantly helps the organelles to be in their respective position in the cells by filling up the cell. As cytoplasm is filling up the cell, so every the cellular organelles, cytoplasmic cell organelles, they are in their respective positions to carry out their different functions to help the cell perform better. State the characteristics of endoplasmic reticulum, where you can see endoplasmic reticulum is a large network of membrane of long tubes, and sheets. You can see in the diagram. It looks like long tubules, and endoplasmic reticulum is similar in structure to the plasma membrane. So in endoplasmic reticulum are of two types. One is rough endoplasmic reticulum and one is smooth endoplasmic reticulum. If you go into the details of the diagram, you can find in the rough endoplasmic reticulum there are small red dots which are ribosomes. Actually, this rough endoplasmic reticulum contains ribosomes which are the site of protein synthesis, whereas smooth endoplasmic reticulum has no ribosomes, hence they are referred to as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. All these structures are revealed under microscope. There is a difference, there are certain characteristics or differences between this rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. You can see under rough endoplasmic reticulum, it looks rough due to the presence of ribosomes. It looks smooth under microscope in case of smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Ribosomes are the sites of protein synthesis. But smooth endoplasmic reticulum helps in the lipid synthesis. As you can see, as you can know or you can understand, both this protein and lipid synthesis, they are very important for the cells. So as rough endoplasmic reticulum has ribosomes, so it can synthesize protein, whereas smooth endoplasmic reticulum, they don't have these ribosomes, hence they can synthesize lipids. Now, third point, if you come to that proteins are sent to various places within the cells according to need. Similarly, lipids are also sent to different places, and liver cells of vertebrates, smooth endoplasmic reticulum detoxifies many poison and drugs. Now, Rough endoplasmic reticulum synthesizes many digestive enzymes of lysosomes. That's very important for the lysosomes to carry out its definite function, because without enzymes, lysosomes would be of no use. So lysosomes, the enzymes are manufactured, or enzymes are synthesized within this rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now the question is, what is membrane biogenesis? Membrane biogenesis is the process by which proteins and lipids together help in the building of cell membrane. That is membrane biogenesis, because here we can see in both rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, one is concerned about protein synthesis, other is concerned about lipid synthesis. So these by which proteins and lipids together the help in building the cell membrane, that is called membrane biogenesis. Now we are coming, what are the functions of ER? Endoplasmic reticulum helps in membrane biogenesis, as it's already told. Then second, endoplasmic reticulum serves as channels to transport materials, especially proteins, between cytoplasm and nucleus. Then endoplasmic reticulum acts as a cytoplasmic framework, which acts as the surface for some of the biochemical activities of the cell. So endoplasmic reticulum, in other words, is a very important member of cell's family. Then the characteristics of lysosomes, and I'm telling you, lysosomes are no less important than this endoplasmic reticulum. They are membrane bound sacs filled with digestive enzymes, and these enzymes are made by rough endoplasmic reticulum, as you have already read in the differences between rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. These enzymes of lysosomes are synthesized by rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now lysosomes dispose of waste materials which help to clean the cells by digesting foreign materials as well as own out cell organelles. Now lysosomes are sacrificing cell organelles. Lysosomes, they don't believe in their own benefits. They are the cleaning agents of the cell. They think that it's their responsibility to clean the cell, and even if they have to suicide, even if they have to destroy their own cells for cleaning the cells, they will never hesitate to do that. In that case, what happens? They actually kill themselves for cleaning the cell, and to repair the cell organelles, to do whatever it will help the cell to carry its function better. The lysosomes are very concerned about it. Probably cell is very fortunate enough to get lysosome as one of its member in its family. Now we are coming down to special features of lysosomes. I already told that lysosomes can break down complex substances into simpler food substances due to the presence of some powerful digestive enzymes. And already these powerful digestive enzymes, it has been told that it is synthesized within the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So these complex food substances also, they may include bacteria or food as well as old cell organelles. So these bacteria, food, they are all digested by these special digestive enzymes. And so I'm just hammering more and more, because these digestive enzymes are synthesized in rough endoplasmic reticulum. These digestive enzymes are belong to these lysosomes. Lysosomes are the cleaning agents. Lysosomes have a great role in cleaning the cells. So now next question, we are going to come down, why lysosomes are called suicidal bags. Already I told that they are self-destructive cells, and there's a process called autolysis. Auto means self and lysis means to break down. They break down themselves in order to clean the cells, and they are suicidal in nature because they think that it's their sole responsibility to clean the cells at any cost by destroying their own cells. In that case, lysosomes are quite lysosomes are quite sacrificing attitude, as I've told, and the cells are quite fortunate enough. they are quite fortunate. Cell is fortunate enough rather to get lysosome as one of its reliable member of the family who never thinks about itself, but it always keeps on thinking about the cell because it doesn't hesitate to destroy itself to claim the cells. Now we are coming to state the characteristics of mitochondria. Mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Now this is a very common point that you are acquainted with, where from the very lower class, you are acquainted with the term powerhouse of the cell means mitochondria. Why? Mitochondria generates ATP. What is the full form of ATP? That is adenosine triphosphate molecules are generated within mitochondria. Now this ATP energy is stored within ATP, and this energy released by mitochondria, they are stored within ATP for which help for making new chemical compounds and for some mechanical work. But most importantly, mitochondria has its own DNA and has its own ribosomes. So mitochondria can replicate and mitochondria can synthesize its own proteins. So in one word, I can say that mitochondria doesn't depend on the cell because cell has a nucleus has its DNA, and again ribosomes are present for protein synthesis, everything is there. But mitochondria is self-sufficient because mitochondria has its own DNA and mitochondria has its own ribosomes. So in that case mitochondria is not dependent on the cell. Instead it helps the cell by generating ATP molecules where energy is stored to perform various activities of the cells. Now mitochondria is slightly folded in structure. Why? Why the structure is folded in mitochondria? In the diagram also you can see that it is a folded structure. If you compare the structure, if you draw the structure of a mitochondria very easily with it's a very easy tip that I can give you, that it's the inner sole of a shoe, that the mitochondria is like that. If you want to draw like that, it's not an art college drawing, it will not be an art college diagram obviously, but you can draw the diagram of mitochondria easily with this useful tip, that it's the inner sole of a shoe where you can find many folds are there. And why there are so many folds, why it's not straight? Because we need a greater surface area for gaseous exchange, because mitochondria takes place in respiration for generating ATP molecules, and in that case a greater surface area is needed. The characteristics of plastids. Now these plastids are present only in plant cells. The plastids are of three types. There are chloroplast, chromoplasts, and leucoplasts. Chloroplasts, they contain chlorophyll, that's a green pigment. That chlorophyll helps in the photosynthesis of plants, as you all know, because with this term photosynthesis you are quite acquainted with from a very lower class again, because plants can make their own food by with the help of a process or by the process photosynthesis, where chlorophyll plays an important role, because chlorophyll is the green pigment present in these chloroplasts, and this chlorophyll helps to trap the solar energy, and then the whole reaction begins. Unless and until the chlorophyll traps the solar energy, it's not possible for the plants to prepare their own food. So chloroplasts are mainly composed of green pigment chlorophyll. Now we come to chromoplasts. They contain some colorful pigments like yellow, orange, like that. Yeah, another point for chloroplast is stroma and grana is present. Stroma and grana are present, and you can see from the diagram the stroma and grana, they are shown over there, that stroma and grana. You can see the if I say there are certain, if you compare the structure, it's actually there are thylakoids, there is lamella, everything is there, but within stroma and grana, if you compare the structure, you can see that this photosynthesis occurs within the stroma and grana. So they are very important part of these chloroplasts. And now chromoplast, as I have told already, there are colored pigments, yellow or orange pigments are present. And in case of leucoplast, only colorless plastids. Colorless plastids means it's colorless actually. It's starch, oil and protein granules are stored, they don't have any color rather. So that are called leucoplasts. Coming to the characteristics of vacuoles. Now, vacuoles are storage sacs for solid or liquid materials. Vacuoles are very small size in animal cells, but very big size, very large size in plant cells. Central vacuole in some plant cells may occupy 50 to 90% of the total cell volume. So, can you imagine how large it is in case of plant cells, that it occupies 50 to 90% of the cell volume? Now, these plant cells, vacuoles, are full of cell sap. Now, what is this cell sap? It provides turgidity and rigidity to the cell. What is turgidity? Turgidity means it never allows the cell to shrink or to swell up too much so that the cell bursts. So, and rigidity is that it helps the cell to be in shape. So, cell sap is a very important factor in case of plant cells which are present in the vacuoles of the plant cell. Substances like amino acids, sugars, various organic acids, and proteins are all stored in vacuoles. In amoeba, food vacuoles contain food items that amoeba has consumed. So in unicellular organisms, what happens especially is vacuoles are there which are of the which perform some functions for excreting excess water, some wastes from the cell. Not only they contain food items, but they are also assigned with the duty of excreting excess water and some waste from the cell in case of unicellular organisms. So vacuoles are very small size in animals. They occupy a large space within the plant cell, and within the plant cell, the central vacuole may occupy, I have told already, 50 to 90% of the total cell volume, and cell sap is present within these vacuoles. These cell saps provide turgidity and rigidity to the cells. Some amino acids, sugars, some proteins, they are stored in within these vacuoles. Amoeba food vacuoles, they are very important because this contain food items that amoeba has consumed. Not only that, unicellular organisms including amoeba, these specialized vacuoles are present that are assigned with the duty of excreting excess water and some waste from the cell. Thank you students for watching this video. I hope it will be useful for you to understand the topic and score high marks in the board exams. If you like this video, then please click on the like button. Also, please subscribe to this channel and click on the notification icon to receive further updates about new videos. If you have any queries or doubts, You can also contact me in the contact details given below. Do you like similar videos on any other topic of class 9? You can leave a message in the comment section if you like any similar videos on any other topic of class 9 below the video. I'm going to post my next video for class 10 student CBSE board biology. So please stay tuned.